Inter Miami sends off Messi's bodyguard. The first ever Chattanooga derby plays tonight. And what's changed since Peter Vermes became the head coach of SKC? That and more on Wednesday's Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. This is Morning Kickaround, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's favoritist country. The call of David Peckham means you've made it to the show. Coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. My name's Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. Thank you so much for joining us. How you doing, Mr. Davis?
You know, I've had better 24 hours than I just had, but I'm here. And I got a haircut, and people can notice that. And I'm wearing my jacket that says USA on it because I'm always proud to be American. So let's do this. Let's go.
You look like you're ready to join the NASL's Team USA right now.
Yeah, I'm going for Team USA back in 1984, whatever that was. A team that was terrible on the field and terribly run off the field. I think I don't want to be those things. I want to be good at what I'm doing.
If you're new to the show and confused of what Team USA is or NASL, look back in some of our previous videos on the Morning Kickaround YouTube channel. We kind of delve into some of the peculiarities and the weird history of American soccer. So be sure to check out the Morning Kickaround YouTube channel for that. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button. We are growing this channel, growing this audience. The numbers are doing well. We crashed through 1,500 on our way to 2,500 and then 5,000 subscribers. So Morning Kickaround on YouTube.com. Subscribe, and a new feature there. Did you see this? When you go to the channel, you can hit thanks and actually donate money to the channel.
Wow, that's incredible. What an easy way to support American soccer conversation. That is absolutely thrilling. And by the way, speaking of our follower number, I want to zoom right past it because, you know, obviously we want to keep growing, but we're like this close to 1776. So that would be cool just for a moment to be at 1776.
Do fireworks automatically go off in the background when that happens while wearing that shirt, no less?
Yeah, a guy with a tricorn hat or whatever plays something on a flute, and then we get some fireworks, and everybody talks about the founding fathers, and then we move on to soccer again.
Once all those festivities are underway and you've already subscribed, you can look us up. We are a podcast now. Lots of new news. So if you are a audiophile and you like to take your podcasts or take your soccer conversation in podcast form, look up Morning Kickaround on your podcast platform, and we should be there. And write us a note if we're not, and we'll try to make the various arrangements and put in the information to get you your Morning Kickaround wherever you prefer to get your podcasts. You can follow along on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, or write us a note, morningkickaround at gmail.com. And we also have a coffee page, and there is bonus content there. That is another place where you can donate and help support the show, one-time or regularly occurring donations. And we have some bonus content though there for those who contribute. You ready to get into the show, Jason?
I absolutely am. Let's do this.
All right, let's kick off Wednesday's Morning Kickaround with today's long balls. Long ball number one here on Wednesday, April 2nd. There is a lot of action, a lot of games hitting the field tonight, but one person not hitting the field, Lionel Messi's bodyguard. His bodyguard, Yassine Cheuko. Hope I'm saying that right.
Good job. Good job. I have no idea, but good job, Rob, because I keep tripping over the vowel order, so you did a good job, I think.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That's my first pronunciation compliment from Jason Davis of the show. So mark that, Jenny, in the show notes, please. He's embroiled in a little bit of off the field controversy. Not sure if that's connected, but the Messi's bodyguard club decision, not an MLS mandate. Apparently, there was a little bit of mix up in the reporting, but this is an Inter Miami decision to keep the bodyguard. He's on staff still, but not going to be on the field. He's frustrated by the decision, saying he worked in Europe for 7 years and only 6 people invaded the pitch in League One and Champions League. And since coming to the USA in just 20 months, 16 people have already done so. Huge problem here. I am not the problem. Let me help Messi, he says.
Right. Yeah. So we chronicled the whole back and forth with Logan Paul with Yacine and his challenge to Logan Paul that seemed to be wrapped up in a trademark dispute over energy drinks. Yeah, 2025 is pretty dumb. Let's just say that. Let's just say 2025 is pretty dumb. I don't think this is related, but he does go on House of Highlights, but again, his own personal celebrity continues to grow. He kind of became a thing. I think I was reading an article written in 2023 by the Athletic guys about his cult status because they had been spotting him on the field with these incredibly dangerous 16-year-old pitch invaders who kept coming on the field to get photos with Messi. I mean, that's the thing. Like, again, the quantity of pitch invaders may be higher than in Europe, but the quality of those pitch invaders, like, are they the same? I mean, do you really need to put a 125-pound guy in a chokehold, Yacine? That's my question. But that's probably why
there's always potential. I brought this up. I mean, there is a lot of pitch invaders, and you never know. I mean, like,
sure.
The world is dark sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. That is true. But he went on the House of Highlights and said that MLS had banned him. Turns out specifically it was Inter Miami who had done this. And I'm guessing that this is a lot to do with liability, right? What happens when a pitch invader gets hurt or he tackles somebody, partly because maybe it's better for his personal brand? I mean, he's sort of incentivized to get on television now. He's incentivized to be spotted. He's incentivized to go viral because of his own personal celebrity. So I'm not saying that he is the kind of guy that would do this. I think he takes his job seriously, but you can't blame Inter Miami for saying, like, maybe we shouldn't have this guy on our field. He's not our employee. He's Lionel Messi's personal employee, and as much power as Messi definitely has at Inter Miami. I mean, again, Javier Mascherano is the head coach of Inter Miami. I just want to point that out again. It doesn't seem as though the club is cool with Yacine Cheuco being around to potentially get them in trouble and have liability issues if and when he does something, violent in his quest to protect Lionel Messi.
I know that we've talked about it, and it has made a buzz. Like you said, it's got kind of like a little cottage industry of spot Yacine, but I joked the other day when we talked about the Logan Paul thing, like, isn't that opening Pandora's box? Maybe some other players feel that they need a personal bodyguard on the field. And what are you going to have, like 22 giant, massive, muscling bouncer guys, prowling the sideline of every game? I mean, I thought that allowing him in the first place was kind of like maybe opening up that Pandora's box. And I think it was almost underreported in a way that, like, that's got to be a completely different change of protocol and a kind of completely different way of the on-field entertainment and the crowd. I don't know. It kind of bridges the gap, or I don't know if bridges the gap, but blurs the line in an odd way. I feel like it opens up. Like, what are we going to start, like, having like armies in between the players and the fans? Like, it might, like I said, it might open up a slippery slope for the presenters of games.
Yeah, there is that is the thing about whether or not Messi should have a bodyguard and what about other players maybe wanting their own bodyguards. Let's be fair that as far as I can tell, the only player who generates specific pitch invaders is Lionel Messi. Right? In fact, individual pitch invaders going on the field to get photos with players, I think, is fairly limited to Messi and Ronaldo. Right? Is that fair, or do you think there are other players? I mean, are people trying to get on the field to take a photo with Robert Lewandowski, as great as he is? Are people trying to run on the field to get a picture with Harry Kane? Are they trying to run on the field to get a picture with I don't know, name your big star of choice? right? Erling Haaland, does he have pitch invaders? I mean, England's maybe different, I guess. I don't know, but is that a thing? Or is this just limited to Messi and Ronaldo? And it does. I will also say that it tends to happen. I think it has happened in some other places, but in Europe, but it tends to happen, to Yassine's point, in sort of outside of the highest levels of football. So America, Major League Soccer, potentially if Messi goes and plays in a CONCACAF environment somewhere else, it tends to happen. It happens maybe, and you go see a game in the Middle East, a friendly or something. There's something else going on here, but I don't know that means he should have a right to be on the field and potentially run on the field at a moment's notice. That's just not a thing that people should be able to do. Players and referees are allowed on the field. Guess who else is allowed on the field? Oh, I'm sorry. Medical staff, if and when a player gets injured. Guess who else is allowed on the field? Nobody else. Nobody else. I mean, sidelines, around, whatever. It just seems a little messy, and I kind of get it.
And also, just this is a kind of another variable too. What if the bodyguard is running out there chasing, slips and like wrecks some other player's knee or something, and he is a personal bodyguard to somebody else and not necessarily stadium officials? There's probably some insurance or contingency plan within that for the larger security force, but I don't know. I feel like that opens up a can of worms. And a shout out to Urias for the Kantian argument. Had to look up what that meant. Thank you for educating me.
Philosophy, Robert. Are you getting into philosophy now? Is this going to be a philosophy show?
Well, that's up to Urias. He's throwing that in the mix, and apparently I was going down that road. So thank you for educating me there, dear viewer. But moving on to long ball number 2. Last night saw 2 goalless CONCACAF Champions Cup quarterfinals. Club America Cruz Azul 0-0, and the Galaxy and Tigres also 0-0. Tonight on Wednesday, will we see more? Vancouver takes on Pumas, and LAFC takes on the aforementioned Inter Miami.
I think we'll get goals tonight. We got no goals in both of those games last night. I mean, even the Mexican game, the all-Mexican affair didn't deliver any goals as well. So I hope we get some goals this evening. I guess, okay, just to put a review on the Galaxy, good, I guess, that they held Tigres goalless.
Didn't lose.
They didn't lose. Yay. But they got to go now. They have to go to Monterrey, and they're probably going to lose. And if you look at the numbers.
What's the formula? Home, keep them tight, and then what do the Mexican teams do?
Well, but you need, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, the Galaxy we cannot expect the Galaxy, considering their start in Major League Soccer, to drop a bunch of goals on Tigres, or even really try to drop a bunch of goals on Tigres, and it shows. 17-7 shots for Tigres over the LA Galaxy. You were so disgusted with the performance that you went off camera for a second there, Rob. I'm not sure what that was. Anyway, 17 shots to 7 for Tigres at, again, in LA. The Galaxy did get a couple of shots on target, but just not enough to really threaten. And as I mentioned, Club America and Cruz Azul also played to a goalless draw. That game generating 20 shots, 5 shots on target. Cruz Azul had more possession. Club America slightly more dangerous. That one will be delicately poised in the second leg, and that one could go either way. I think Tigres will take care of the Galaxy. As for tonight's matchups, Vancouver at home, and they've already surprised us, right? Yep. Maybe they will surprise us again. Now, I think the status of Ryan Gauld is critical here, and he's injured, right? He's out. He's got an injury. I haven't seen anything about him maybe potentially being back for this game. And would this be the game you would want to rush him back for? If you are Vancouver, if you've had this great start to the season, is this really something you want to test? And you might be looking at a big MLS campaign. You're not going to rush him back. So Ryan Gauld missing is a major part of Vancouver's problems as they are at home, and they need goals to take with them back to Mexico. And then the other game, obviously, is an all-MLS game, and I do expect goals in that game. Like, I expect there to be some fireworks between LAFC and Miami, and we saw Messi play, a little bit over half an hour or something like that in that game on the weekend, and he scores.
That's all he needed.
I think he'll be on the field in this game. I really wish this was a little bit earlier in the evening for your West Coast friend Jason, or your East Coast friend Jason Davis, who's not a West Coast person. 11:30 Eastern time, man.
And that's if that starts on time.
Well, I don't know if they're going to kick off at exactly 11:30, but it will be fascinating. I think probably LAFC will get an advantage in this leg, but I do think Miami's capable of overturning it. Maybe 2-1, maybe 1-0, something like that.
Going back to your point about Vancouver, it does bring up an interesting kind of thread to pick up on of, do teams value this competition way higher than their league positioning? I mean, like you said, Vancouver, they have, you've come out the blocks hot. The only game they've lost so far was when many of their key players are out on international duty. So largely successful in this early 6 games of the season. Do they value CONCACAF Champions Cup enough to maybe put some of their key players in a high rotation, a quick turnaround from their game at the weekend?
Yeah. I mean, look, everybody's dealing with fixture congestion, right? Everybody's dealing with with the issue of trying to balance their season. I mean,
so if they threw the kitchen sink at this tonight, would it be worth it if they burn out some of their guys and they kind of fade in the league?
Right. Well, I mean, it's a long season in the league, and I think you want to believe that you'll be able to recover and find some way. And maybe if you drop a result or two or drop some points in the league, it's not going to upend you. I mean, this is the thing about if there's one benefit to Major League Soccer being the way it is with playoffs and all of that, then the argument is, if we sacrifice some points in the league because we're going for the CONCACAF Champions Cup, it's not the end of the world. We can still finish 3rd or 4th or 5th or 8th or 9th and make the playoffs. Neither one of these teams wants to do that. They have ambitions of being a Supporter Shield winner. They want to be in first place in their conference. They want to be the top overall seed. That's what they want to carry in to their postseason in Major League Soccer. And every game does matter in the league. But, again, only one MLS team has done this. That MLS team didn't really have to go through Mexican opposition except at the end. So maybe this is, hey, we'll be, we can do something no one else has ever done before. At the very least, match Seattle and become the second MLS CONCACAF Champions Cup winner.
So 2 quarterfinals on the docket tonight. Going back to your point about Leo Messi, so the super subs for both of these teams, Olivier Giroud versus Leo Messi. Who would you rather have? I mean, that might be a redundant question, but both are kind of filling the same sort of role at this point.
I mean, obviously Olivier Giroud is kind of becoming a joke. Is that a fair statement? He's not scoring.
No,
he's not scoring goals.
I've been to one. I think I saw his only goal for LAFC so far when I went to see the League's Cup last year when LAFC was downed by the Columbus Crew. But you wouldn't say that Olivier Giroud has been a roaring success for Los Angeles Football Club. So we started this conversation with Tuesday's games being scoreless. Which one of these games between Vancouver and Pumas, LAFC, Miami, which one gets more goals out of it, do you think?
Oh, Inter Miami and LAFC will put up more goals, unless Puma rocks Vancouver, and I don't think they will. I think that'll be a tight game. I could see that be a 1-0 win for Vancouver or maybe a 1-1. The Mexican clubs, for as much as we can predict what's going to happen when they go back down to Mexico in the second leg in these cases, the Mexican clubs recently haven't been, incredible in their away leg. So there's a chance here Vancouver could take a lead to Mexico. There's a chance of that. But I do think LAFC and Inter Miami being MLS teams and not having the same sort of dynamic, I think they will deliver goals. I mean, it may not be 6, but I do think they will deliver goals.
With the Mexican teams, kind of when they do the first round or the first leg of a 2-round matchup in the United States, do they typically rest their players for the second round, or are they just have an away performance that's not quite as good?
No, that has happened a little bit. I mean, I do think that, this season we've seen some Mexican teams make some strategic choices in terms of their lineups when they go into these legs. And I think their idea is, okay, we can, get a passable result away in the United States, or in this case for Vancouver in Canada. And then, we'll be fine going back home because we have such a massive advantage when we play in our own building against MLS teams. And that's you can't blame them for that calculation. It has been proven to be correct more times than not.
Moving along to our third headline, our third long ball of the day here on Wednesday, April 2nd. U.S. Open Cup Round 2. It kicked off last night with a slate of games and an even bigger slate of games here on Wednesday. Looking back at last night, Portland Hearts of Pine, kind of an internet sensation. There's been a big community growing, and they're finally hitting the field. They get a 4-0 victory last night against, here's my attempt at pronunciation, CD Phalenz. I double clutched on that one, guys. CD Phalenz. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which language that's supposed to be, so I'm not sure which pronunciation or enunciation or accent to put on that one. But big win for Portland Hearts of Pine out there on the East Coast. Ford Madison with a big 5-1 win over Duluth. Long Island Rough Riders fall to the Charlotte Independents. Georgia Tormento 3-0 over Harbor City. Carolina Core 4-2 over Soda City. FC Cincinnati 2. The New York Pancyprian Freedoms 0-0. Who won in the penalty kickoff or the penalty shootout?
Can I ask a question? I think maybe you were that result for Portland Hearts of Pine. That was in round 1. That was it. That was a first round matchup. So second round matchup.
I double clicked the matchups. I went back too many days on my thing. My apologies.
Yeah,
hey,
we're
Jenny,
we're in
cut
round...
that out. Cut that out. That's a live show mistake. You got to cut that out.
Yeah, Rob was reliving the first round magic of the Open Cup.
Ooh,
and
I'm just trying to go for those donations for the Portland Hearts of Pine fans that are watching this. Just trying to relive that.
Sure.
For that experience.
You ready? Take 2. You want to start over? We're going to give you a clean. Okay.
All right. Last night in the opening slate of round 2 games in the U.S. Open Cup, Columbus Crew 3-0 win over Lexington. Tormenta, South Georgia Tormenta 3-2 over Foro SC. Charlotte Independents get a 2-1 win over Carolina Core FC. Inter Miami fell to local rivals.
Inter Miami 2. Let's be specific.
What did I say?
That is you said Inter Miami, but you got to add the 2 because that's obviously not Busquets and Suarez and Messi and Alba. It's none of those guys. It's
that would
all
be a heck
second...
of a scalp for Miami FC, but not true. To your point, good correction. Inter Miami CF 2-0. Miami FC 1. All right, there you go. Monterey Bay fell at home 2-1 to El Farolito.
Let's
SC.
pause there. Let's pause there for a second. El Farolito is one of the darlings of the Cup for a lot of people. They are a team that is attached to this taco restaurant, this burrito restaurant in San Francisco. I'm headed out there at the end of the month for a bit of vacation, and I'm wondering if I can convince my wife just to go to this place so I can take a photo and be like, I went to El Farolito and I'm here. But they obviously are a bit of a story, and they can play. I mean, this wasn't a smash and grab situation for El Farolito. They actually did take down a professional side in Monterey Bay and did it in Monterey, just down the road from the Bay Area. So I think that one is something we can celebrate in terms of this is. Again, Cinderella stories, still dancing. I mean, if we're going to just steal from March Madness, we just should. Can I say that? I keep hearing March Mania because people don't want to get in trouble. Am I allowed to say? Anyway, people don't.
Spring Bonanza.
Borrow from the NCAA men's basketball tournament or women's basketball tournament for that matter, then we should maybe just say they're still dancing. Survive in advance. That's what El Farolito has done.
You're making me hungry just thinking about it. Get something to eat and then see a wonderful action there. And then the last. Tilt from Tuesday night, AV Alta 2, Los Angeles FC 2-1. So AV Alta getting the win over the second team for Los Angeles FC, but probably kind of bigger slate tonight. Lots of local derbies in the cup tonight. And in the aforementioned Portland Hearts of Pine are actually taking on Hartford Athletic at 6:30 as part of that. And close to your neck of the woods, Loudoun United taking on Virginia Dream. Will they be dreaming after tonight, Jason?
Yeah, that's a good question. Loudoun United, a USL championship team, and obviously Virginia Dream is a UPSL team. I mean, I imagine, among other things, locally. That team, Virginia Dream, based maybe 3 or 4 miles from where I'm sitting right now. Have not yet seen that. And obviously going out to Loudoun, which people who don't know Northern Virginia, Loudon is in Northern Virginia, but where they play is a bit of a hike. I actually did live out there near Leesburg, Virginia. It's very beautiful. They have lots of horses and wineries, and they have the soccer stadium, Segra Field, which is where Loudon United plays. I don't think I'm going to make it, but I'm rooting for Virginia Dream. I want to see the upset. Obviously, I have to support local, Rob, like you do with Oakland County.
You're a dreamer, Jason. You're a dreamer. Other matchups tonight. We're going to talk about this in greater detail later in the show, but one that Open Cup and lower league fans are going to be tuning into: Chattanooga FC taking on the Chattanooga Red Wolves tonight.
Yes.
A contentious matchup, to say the least.
Let me throw this in here. This was our first comment today. This is, I'm going to the Chattanooga Derby tonight. I picked the red side of town because it's closer to my house. I only moved here recently, so I didn't know the history, rather. Feels like a proper grudge match. And we'll dive into a little bit of the history and tell you, like, yes, why it's a proper grudge match, what one side represents for some people versus what the other side represents for some people. And I don't want to get into judgment on who you support in Chattanooga means something. Like, I don't want to do a value judgment. You're better if you support this team than if you support the other. But I do think that it's sort of in microcosm, the Chattanooga Derby is American soccer, especially lower division American soccer in a lot of ways.
It sure is. Another matchup tonight: Greenville Triumph SC taking on Knoxville. And in the next matchup, one of these names is kind of a name that harkens back when you see old historical soccer from like the 1920s in the ASL. Is Westchester SC taking on the New York Pan-Cyprian Freedoms? And that's a throwback name right there.
Yeah, that's like when the Philadelphia German Hungarians were winning the Open Cup, stuff like that. Maccabi LA or whatever it was winning the Open Cup. It does feel like that. It feels like, back when the only people who took the sport seriously were these sort of ethnically centered men's clubs who put teams out. And not always were those players like
or factories,
totally German or Hungarian. I mean, it wasn't like that, but they were attached to these sort of civic societies that existed. And, that's not just the team names, but sort of like those, and some of those groups still exist. Some of those organizations are still around. But there was a time in America when, your life was your family, your church, and your civic society or whatever. And, we still have moose lodges and things like that, but they're not nearly as prevalent as they were back in those days.
You ever dreamed of being a moose one day?
Only when I watched the Flintstones. What were the group they were in? I can't remember. They were in a group.
That's something.
Barney,
that's something for the chat, I think. There,
Barney and Fred.
What was the Flintstones social group called?
Yeah, they had a men's social club, and I can't remember what it was. I don't know. I've
Rock Bangers.
I can't join, but I've been to a VFW. Those places are very interesting. They're very fun. Was it the Water Buffaloes? Shout out to Nicholas Murray. Was it the Water? It might have been the Water Buffaloes. It might have been. In a time of dinosaurs, they were water buffaloes.
Fair play. I can't argue against it. Further matchups tonight in the second round of the U.S. Open Cup: FC Naples versus Little Rock Rangers. Ford Madison taking in an FC Tulsa. And one, some viewers will note, because they brought in some ringers, and I believe the Ringers are coming back for the second round. Des Moines Menace taking on Union Omaha. Not only a local rivalry, but enhanced with the likes of Darren McCarty and Sasha Kleshton and the like.
Okay, so you mistakenly said that Union Omaha was in Iowa, which it is not.
And I'm curious.
No, I guess you did. I'm trying to figure out. So you're the Midwesterner. I mean, I know the Midwest is a very big place. It takes 2 hours to drive between Des Moines and Omaha. That's not terrible.
That's an American Derby, right?
It's a straight shot on I-80, apparently. I've never driven it myself, but you can get there from one place to the other in not that about the same time as it would take to watch the game, as a matter of fact. So there you go. 6 hours total. 2 hours there, watch the game. 2 hours back, 6 hours.
Totally doable. The I-80 road rage
straight
derby.
Across the plains, straight across.
The plain derby.
Just nothing. Yeah, it's not nothing. Sorry, there's not nothing out there. And again, I have I have family from the Midwest, but it is the flat part of the country.
And straight too. I bet you could drive 99% of that without ever steering. You could just probably just drive straight, put the cruise control on, get from stadium to stadium.
You do have to. I-80 does kind of curve, and I don't know if there's an exit involved around. Looks like that is Yorkshire, Iowa, is where that is. Yorkshire. I don't know how they say it over there. So anyway,
I'm sure they say Yorkshire. I'm sure they say that out there.
Positive they do. Yeah, for sure. Down at the feed store. They say Yorkshire.
The feed store in Yorkshire. All right. Final two matchups tonight. The late night offerings in the Open Cup second round. Tacoma Defiance taking on Spokane Velocity, and Ventura County FC taking on El Paso Locomotive. And that is your rundown for the second round of the U.S. Open Cup 2025. Plenty of entertainment in store here in that competition this evening. If you haven't hit the subscribe button for Morning Kickaround, do so now, why don't you? And then tell your friend to be the next. The subscriber count is growing, and the show gets more and more fun with the more people contributing, adding comments, replying, and just participating in the American soccer conversation with us. And Morning Kickaround is a podcast now. So search up Morning Kickaround in your favorite podcast platform and take a listen there and take us on the go. There's also buttons on the Morning Kickaround YouTube channel where you can donate money. It's a button on there called Thanks, and you can select what payment amount you'd like to help support the show, help us become sustainable, and then maybe towards some growth of the show, make the show even bigger and more robust than it is now. We're trying to make this as big as we possibly can. Follow along on social media at @MKickaround across social media platforms, including X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, or write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And one more thing, we have a coffee page, coffee.com/morningkickaround. There's bonus content there for anyone who donates. One-time coffee, or maybe something larger or regularly scheduled. Coffee.com/morningkickaround. We're going to catch our breath and come right back with today's.
Today's what? What?
Today's hot topic here on Morning Kickaround. Hot topic on Morning Kickaround for Wednesday, April 2nd. I'm Robert. He's Jason. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining us here. Tonight, we'll see history in the U.S. Open Cup. The two professional soccer teams in Chattanooga will face off against each other for the first time in the second round of the U.S. Open Cup. And for those not familiar, what is the history behind this derby? Why is it so fraught, Jason?
Well, I mean, this is basically a story, and there are lots of details here that are, I think, fascinating, and people should dive into them. And we will encourage everybody to go over to protagonistsoccer.com, our friend Dan Vaughn, who's been on the show, and everybody that he works with over there. For the background, there's a good article about this that dropped yesterday. But basically, this comes down to grassroots coming together, a community, a bunch of people getting a team off the ground in Chattanooga, in terms of Chattanooga FC, an amateur club that started in 2009. Same year that Peter Vermes started in Kansas City, this team launched. They played in NPSL for 10 years. Yes, go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say, so Chattanooga is kind of the blueprint that many of the teams in the 2010s used to create. I mean, DCFC's Sean Mann told me, first time I ever talked to him, we tried to emulate them when they were getting off the ground. Just context.
Absolutely. If you think of Detroit City as a unique story and the kind of soccer club that people like to celebrate because they, again, 5 guys playing in a men's league in Detroit said, why don't we have a team? Let's put one together. You know, they initially enter short season summer soccer with college kids. You know, I remember going out years ago at the invitation of Detroit City, and they were, you know, they talked about how they would put these kids in sort of dorm rooms for the summer so that they could all live together, play together. You know, it was all very like, it wasn't big time, but that was okay, right? It was organic in a lot of ways. I think that word is loaded, and maybe it misses some things about how these teams think about positioning themselves, because what Detroit City did, what Chattanooga did, is made sure that they were sort of attractive as brands, even as they were grassroots as soccer teams, right? There was, let's be conscious of our logo. Let's sell things to people. And again, a lot of this is just civic pride. And when you talk about a city like Chattanooga, which is not a large city, it's not a huge metropolitan area, you're talking about, what do we have here in Chattanooga? The Lookout. So they're still a thing, right? The minor league baseball team. But we've talked about the difference between minor league baseball and lower level soccer. When you have a soccer team that's playing whatever league they're playing in, they matter in a way that a minor league baseball team can't, because the minor league baseball team is serving, generally speaking, there are independent teams, but serving a major league master. So Chattanooga FC launches in 2009. They play in the NPSL, high-level amateur soccer, for 10 years. They never actually win the league, but they generate excitement, and they generate a fan base. And they've got people coming out, very much like Detroit City, who are dedicated to the team, who create an atmosphere. And then USL says, oh, look what's happening in Chattanooga. And somebody says, we'd like to start a team in the USL in Chattanooga, and the Chattanooga Red Wolves are born. And they're born by they're birthed rather by a Utah property developer named Bob Martino, who purchased territorial rights, right? And that's not a thing that rubs people the right way all the time, because they go, oh, territorial rights? What do you mean? There's already a team there. What territorial rights can you have? But of course, as we've talked about, Rob, you've got leagues that are operating parallel to one another that have nothing to do with one another, and they're not connected. They may be all operating under the auspices of U.S. Soccer, but they're not connected in any way that would say, oh, there's already a team in Chattanooga, and you can't put another team there, and you can't launch a team because there's already a team. If USL, operating as their own business, wants to put a team there, they can absolutely do it. And when Martino bought because I think the feeling was, Rob, that Chattanooga FC had sort of laid the groundwork, and they weren't a team that had like eaten up all of the market, and the Red Wolves came in thinking we can be the professional team that Chattanooga FC is not.
Yeah, and that rub has kind of extended now into another chapter, because when Chattanooga did professionalize, they went to NISA. And there was a few years there where NISA was getting off the ground. I think that's 18, 19 or so. And then with the Chattanooga Red Wolves getting that USL territorial rights with the collapse of NISA, it didn't give Chattanooga very many options of where to go.
It did put Chattanooga FC in this position of, okay, there's another team in town. We're a short season amateur team, and that's a professional team. And they're going to outspend us, and they're going to outmarket us, and do we just sort of try to occupy this lower level space underneath Chattanooga Red Wolves? Can we live there and still be okay? Or, and you look at this story of amateur teams, it's hard not to be ambitious, right? It's hard. It's just sort of mentality. We want to keep growing. And if you keep growing and you're an amateur team, the next step is to go professional. So you could obviously look at this as the Red Wolves pushed Chattanooga FC into a professional mindset. And as you said, because there was already a USL team in town, and there's a territorial rights thing happening there, what they did was NISA. And then when NISA collapsed, the only place they could go to be in a professional operating league that was organized and wasn't going to collapse underneath them was to go MLS Next Pro. And that's where they are right now. And they're one of a very small number of independent teams that are in MLS Next Pro at this point.
Yeah, so those two teams taking the field against each other for the very first time, their paths have not crossed. And this is probably another kind of beauty of the Open Cup, like teams in like separate companies, so to speak, actually getting to cross paths. So tonight, round 2. So do you think that if there's anyone that's a fan of Chattanooga, I'm curious to see if the Red Wolves fans have any grudge against the Chattanooga fans at all for anything that might have been said in the interim time between the Red Wolves creation and now, because you'd think that it would kind of be a one-sided grudge from we were here doing our great thing, and then this team moved into our area that kind of made things difficult. Do you think that the Red Wolves fan base has any reason to have a grudge against the Chattanooga fans?
Well, only because I'm sure CFC fans have sort of pointed at the Red Wolves and said, they're the interlopers, they're the carpetbaggers, they don't actually represent Chattanooga. I mean, this is something that you and I are not going to be able to speak to because this gets to deeper feelings, again, about Chattanooga as a town, who should represent Chattanooga on a soccer field, and then, again, our connections to our teams and how they manifest when it comes to the structures of American soccer. We've spent so much time recently talking about USL's intent to bring in promotion or relegation if they can get a first division off the ground, and that's people are getting excited about that because of teams like Chattanooga FC. The idea of being a team like them. Now, obviously, they're not going to have access to that system because they're not a USL team, and this isn't going to be open to anybody. It's only going to be open to USL teams, so it's kind of closed, right? But the idea is that we as a country have the potential, we imagine we do, have the potential to have a lot more clubs like Chattanooga FC, like Detroit City, that are sort of organized by people whose first concern is the love of the game, not making money or spending incredible amounts of money to meet an expansion fee demand or to build glittering facilities. Yeah, that might be the goal one day, but that's not the only kind of soccer. It might feel more authentic to be connected to a team like Chattanooga FC than to be connected to a team that, in this case, is Chattanooga Red Wolves, even though, again, depending on your perspective, the Red Wolves are sort of the underdog. Certainly for USL fans, they would hold the Red Wolves up as the underdog as compared to any MLS team that's out there. But again, it's sort of like all wrapped up in the psychology of us as American soccer fans, and I think that's interesting. And if the Red Bull fans have any real beef or have any real grudge to hold against Chattanooga FC fans, it's just that thing of, oh, you're not authentic enough, and feeling judged by that and pushing back against it.
So this Chattanooga derby, I don't know if there is a specific, I see Chattanooga two-step perhaps, but Chattanooga FC taking on Chattanooga Red Wolves tonight at 7 at Finley Stadium. Curious to see what will play out there. I'm sure U.S. Open Cup fans that are tuning in, that will be on their radar. Do you have any other further thoughts on round 2 of the U.S. Open Cup or this kind of Chattanooga derby before we move on?
Well, no, I mean, obviously, look, I'm excited to see how this plays out as a neutral observer. Right now, I am inclined. I'll be honest with you. I'm inclined towards the Chattanooga FC side of this. Right, as a soccer fan, as somebody who wants to see the sport grow, as somebody who knows their story a little bit, I'm somebody who's inclined to that. But I don't know that we can throw the baby out with the bathwater and start turning clubs like the Red Wolves into the villain in this situation, right? Because there aren't enough clubs that have stood the test of time. Like, if you ask me if I had a time machine and I could go back and change whether or not the Red Wolves launched in Chattanooga, if I had the possibility of doing that, I probably would say, yes, I would do that. I would prefer that not happen. But I don't know exactly if that would be better. I don't know if that branch in terms of history would have been better for Chattanooga soccer or not. Again, this is the first time these teams will ever have played. I would rather this be more often, but again, our league systems have created this situation where it's really, really tough. I will also say that, one thing that we should note about Chattanooga FC is that they were, I believe, the first club in American soccer to have a fan ownership scheme. And you could buy a share of Chattanooga FC. And there are restrictions on that because of PLS, which we've talked about on this very program in a different video with Peter Wilt, who advocates for the ability of fans to own their clubs in a socios kind of model a la Spain or a 50+1 model a la Germany. But Chattanooga FC does have fan ownership, and I think that again makes it feel authentic. It makes us feel connected to these clubs, and I would love to see a team like that succeed. I don't know they have to do it in the Open Cup, but of course that would get them more headlines. It would get them an opportunity to draw some more attention to what they're doing.
The first Chattanooga derby tonight at 7. Of course, these first 2 rounds can be found on YouTube before third round and beyond. Switch over to the CBS networks. You got another point?
Now, I just want to say, I mean, wouldn't it be incredible if Chattanooga FC was playing on CBS, on Golasso, playing on that platform and getting some attention via the studio coverage, the pregame coverage, all of those things? That would certainly be big for them.
If you haven't clicked subscribe already to Morning Kickaround, please do so now. The numbers are doing well, and the show gets better and better as those subscriber numbers go up. You can even hit the thanks button, throw us a little bit of cash, help us become more sustainable, cover our expenses, and then perhaps even give us the opportunity to grow the program, maybe even extend and do more with the show. Follow along on social media at mkickaround, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky amongst the platforms the show exists on. You can write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. You got a partnership idea, a sponsorship idea, or just write us a note. We've gotten a few good ones there. So morningkickaround@gmail.com.
Send us your story. Send us your grassroots, lower level, untold American soccer story. Send it to us.
Yeah, those are fun. And U.S. Open Cup, great opportunity for those stories. Some of my favorite American soccer memories inextricably linked to U.S. Open Cup matches. We are also a podcast. So if you like the show and you like to listen on podcasts, we got you set up. Look for Morning Kickaround on your favorite podcast platform. And one further note, you can also support and get extra content at coffee.com/Morning Kickaround. So head over there if you haven't done so already. We're going to catch our breath and come right back with a little bit more of American soccer being weird here on Morning Kickaround. American soccer is weird here on Morning Kickaround. I'm Robert. He's Jason. When we were live on Monday morning, longest tenured MLS coach, Peter Vermes, was let go in the segment in which we were talking about, is he going to get let go? And he was. And so we were kind of in the moment there. So we wanted to take another segment and kind of reflect on some of the things that have happened during his 16-year span as the Kansas City head coach. His time in the league spans longer than that, but during his time, 16 years, started in 2009, a whole lot has changed within Major League Soccer, and just to kind of show the impact and just the era, the legacy that he has put together and the longevity, we're kind of like do a compare and contrast of where the league was when he started in 2009 compared to where we are now.
Well, I mean, before I throw up a bit of a graphic helper here, I'll throw in this number that I wasn't able to put in the graphic. Our producer Jenny pulled this together. 138 unique head coaches in Major League Soccer since 2009. Now, if you take out the interim coaches, the guys who were only on the job for a short-term period and weren't going to get the permanent job, it's 104. So that's 104 coaches have come and gone since Peter Vermes, or have been hired, I suppose, since Peter Vermes got the job or took the job himself, because he was the sporting director of then the Kansas City Wizards, and I believe it was Curt Analfo that got fired. People in the chat can check me on this. Curt Analfo got fired, and Peter Vermes hired himself as head coach in addition to the sporting director job he was already doing in Kansas City. And yes, this was the first year of the Seattle Sounders in 2009 when he took that job. I will throw this up there. Here we go. How MLS has changed since Peter Vermes became head coach of then the Wizards. Then obviously I could have thrown up the two logos. I didn't do that. I should have. Number of teams in 2009, 15. We have doubled the number of teams in Major League Soccer since Peter Vermes took that job in Kansas City, and now he is out. The average MLS, now this is average. I would love to find the median. Wasn't able to get that, but the average salary was $122,000 in 2009. And remember, David Beckham was making $6.5 million, the highest paid player.
That might bump that up a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, there were players that were pulling that average up, and I believe roster spots were more limited, so even that sort of skews this number. Now the average, again, not the median, but the average salary is nearly $600,000. That's a big jump. That's a significant jump. we made a lot about this back in the day, and I think 2009 we still had those developmental roster spots that were like 14K a season. I think, remember Stuart Holden was famously a developmental roster player in Houston. He was making 14K or something like that. The
It's an
senior
internship.
roster
That's a
minimum,
summer internship.
it absolutely is. The senior roster minimum in 2009 was $34,000. Now it's $104,000. A little bit easier to live on $104,000 than on 34.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a good point too. And I wanted to, again, I didn't put the number of rebrands in this graphic, but Maplewood Vineyards, multiple teams have done multiple rebrands during that time. And we've had teams that have changed their brands twice to that point in the time that Peter Vermes was in Kansas City as the head coach. The number of specific soccer-specific stadiums, say that 3 times fast, soccer-specific stadiums, 7 in 2009. 7 out of 15 in 2009, 22 out of 30 in 2025. And that does, obviously that doesn't, you've got Seattle playing in a football stadium, Atlanta playing in a football stadium that they use to good effect, that they put a lot of people in. The Revs playing in a football stadium is not as good an effect, but those are outliers now. Those are the weird ones now. We've got soccer stadiums all over the country. It's pretty incredible. And then again, I should have gotten the Sporting Kansas City graphic, but here is your difference in MLS logo. Remember that logo? Remember that logo?
Yeah. There's no questioning what sport MLS was for with the one on the left there. There's no doubt about it. And just in general, which one do you like more?
I'm partial. I mean, I've become partial to the new one. The kickstand thing is so weird. I'm not sure exactly what that's all about. Why there's an extension of that sash that splits up the badge. I don't know what the 3 stars mean. They probably told us. They probably stand for
Major League Soccer.
Oh, that's pretty good. No, they probably stand for like fidelity and integrity and buzzwords like that. Important buzzwords like that. Yeah, the old one makes me think of like Direct Kick or whatever that was called on Direct TV or whatever the TV package you would get to watch MLS back in the day, or MLS Live, I think it was called, when they had their own streaming platform. Yeah, actually, Nicholas Murray does have the juice on this. Club, country, and community are the 3 stars in the current badge for Major League Soccer. It is not just numbers, right? It's not just these numbers that sort of indicate how much Major League Soccer has changed. There's been so many big-name players have come through. The league has done a decent job of sort of getting itself to a higher level of notoriety, both here and abroad. Now, they are hitting a wall with being behind a paywall, putting themselves behind a paywall, and there's lots of things. And, when we talked about Vermes getting fired on that show on Monday, we got a comment from somebody who said, he's been playing a 4-3-3 since time immemorial, since he got the job, basically, and he hasn't changed his approach within that 4-3-3. The 4-3-3 is common. Lots of teams play it, but it's the way they use it. And the argument is that, Peter Vermes is sort of stuck in older tactics, hence that reference to outdated tactics in the supporters group letter that we read on the show on Monday before finding out that Peter had been fired. What I would also love to have done is pulled up a picture from 2009 of Peter Vermes and compared it to a picture of Peter Vermes from now, because people age in 16 years. I'm sure he doesn't look the same. I think the hair was maybe a little bit darker, but the haircut has not changed.
No, he's got a definitely a familiar look, and yeah, just the hair color has gradually lightened over time. Do you think that there's a question in the chat about national legacy, and I know that since the failings of the national team in 2018, his name got bandied about whenever there was a debate of who should be the next coach, and if you should hire an MLS coach. Peter Vermes typically lands on that short list of like, who should we do that? Why would he want it? He has everything he needs at SKC. Do you think now that SKC is not his main employer, does getting fired hurt his viability for that job in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely does. I think that there is a phenomenon that happens. I think it happens with coaches. Obviously, it happens with players, where once you are no longer perceived to be part of the group because of some interruption in your development, or you hit some obstacle that sort of makes it more difficult to imagine you're still on that same trajectory, you're done. You're out. Like, for example, when we did our when I was doing the Best Soccer Show last week, I talked about picking a U.S. men's national team roster of guys who have something to prove, because one of the things we talked about with this window was that it seemed to be a lot of guys who weren't putting the necessary effort in, right? So hey, let's pick a bunch of guys who are going to give a full effort. And I put Aaron Long on that team. And Aaron Long's 32 years old. I mean, he's not old for a center back. And I had talked to him on the radio, and he said, I've hit all the metrics that I had before I had my major injury. But he had a major injury. He tore an Achilles, I believe. And once that happened, people just kind of eliminated him from consideration in their minds. And he's not getting called. Now, it's not impossible to imagine that Pochettino would give him a chance if there's some sort of center back crisis. But nobody thinks of Aaron Long as a candidate. They might even consider Walker Zimmerman more a candidate than Aaron Long. And Walker Zimmerman kind of feels, I think that's probably the case with Peter Vermes. Like, I think it would have to be it would be 6 or 7 people say no to the job before they would get to Peter Vermes at this point. And that's probably not fair to him based on his abilities as a manager, but he did, he did struggle for a number of seasons in Major League Soccer, and it does feel like that falls on him, both because of the actual results, and the tactical things and all that, but also because he was responsible for helping put together the roster. He complained this year. He said sort of directly this season, we didn't spend enough. We're going to have to spend more to be competitive, and that's out of his control, whether the Illigs want to put more money into this team. But there are teams that spend in similar ways to Sporting Kansas City, and I'm thinking about RSL here, and I'm thinking about a couple other teams who do much better year to year than Sporting Kansas City have done.
So, I mean, so SKC, obviously for fans, there's probably most of the fans he's been the coach the entire time that they've, engaged with the team. I mean, certainly my engagement with Major League Soccer, he's always been there. Do you think that, obviously I'm sure the fan base is excited for change because the results have not been what they've wanted for a number of years. Does this allow the opportunity? Is SKC gonna, be on the upswing with the change, or is it a little bit of scary times because you've always had that figure to lean on?
Well, it takes, I'm not gonna say courage, but it obviously it's a bigger lift to make a change when somebody has been there for so long, because you get into this situation of nobody knows how to do anything. It's not like Peter Vermes, and Kerry Zavagnin's been his assistant for a long time, so that does give them a little bit of a bridge to the next era of the team. But I do think you have a problem of just sort of everybody took for granted that Peter was going to do it. He was the man in charge. He was making the choices. And now you have to go find somebody else to do that. And somebody's going to come in and say, okay, where's this to do the other, I need a tool to do this thing, or hey, where's some of the information I need to do my job as head coach or sporting director. And right now Mike Burns is taking over as their chief soccer officer, but I don't know that that's permanent. That person who comes in is going to say, where's the, what, how do I do what I need to do? And then people are going to go, I don't know. Peter did that. I don't know. It does Peter. They're going to call up Peter and say, hey, Peter, where did you put your stapler? Like, I can't find it right now.
Yeah, can you unlock the cabinet in the back of the office?
Can you tell me where you kept the extra Post-its? Because I'm out and nobody knows where they are, or even how to requisition them, because it was always Peter Vermes doing those things. So I do think that there's that, right? You get comfortable. And that's probably why it took so long for Sporting to make this decision. They were comfortable. And the relationships are so strong. Right, the reason that managers get fired is because results go badly, but nobody who makes a decision to hire a manager is sort of intimately connected to that person. It's sort of like, oh, you're just a guy doing a job, and then we didn't get the results, and we only measure success around here by our results in the field, and your results are bad. Thank you for your time. Go away now. But Peter Vermes, again, chose himself to be head coach, made all those decisions, obviously worked intimately and closely with the Illigs for so long. It's like firing your brother, right? It's like that. It's like firing your son. It's like choosing to part ways on on bad terms because it's a ugly thing to have to do with a family member. And now you got to start over. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
You go from the hero to the villain over time, right? And he got to the point of the back end where his favorability level was low. And I was saying on Wednesday, like the moment before we got the news was, would it be easier on the club that obviously he holds close? Would it have been easier for him to have stepped away when the results weren't what they wanted?
The press release said mutual consent. I believe that's, hey, Peter, we're going to fire you. Can we put it's mutual in the press release? And he's like, yeah, I'd rather have it be mutual than for you to say you fired me, right? Of course. I don't know, unless he's going to go public, and he's probably not going to do that, right? He's probably still hurting from the end of this, unless he's going to go public and explain, yeah, I fell on my sword because I love the team and it wasn't working anymore. I don't know that really has any benefit. I don't think anybody is happy to see the end of this because I think Kansas City fans would rather have Peter Vermes succeed than have it be like this so they could keep going with him. But I think everybody recognizes that this is the end. I will say that one thing we tend to do with managers, particularly ones that have been on the job for a long time, when they leave or when they get fired or when it's like they're dead, he's not dead. Peter Vermes is very much alive. He's still around.
He has viability for the national team job, so
he has
to be living for that.
I think he's going to be working in soccer in very short order. Like there's a chance that he could land on SiriusXM FC with me on some other show. There's a chance he will be on television with MLS Season Pass. I think that's almost a certainty.
Yeah,
that he will do some appearances there. He could do his own thing. He could end up getting the next CSO job that opens up. I don't know what his appetite is for coaching at this point, but if there's a job that opens up, I mean, Could Montreal do worse than Peter Vermes? Absolutely, they could do worse than Peter Vermes. I don't think he's going to Montreal, but that's an open job right now, and there will be more, and somebody's going to say, hey, Peter Vermes is out there. Why don't we give the man a call? Now, the other thing that might happen is it ends up being a Dom Kinnear. Dom Kinnear, after his tenure ended in Houston, he ended up kind of moving to the side, despite his success as a head coach in Major League Soccer. He got moved to the side, and he became a top assistant for Cincinnati under Pat Noonan, a younger coach in a different generation. And I think that's been invaluable for Pat Noonan. And as much as I think it sucks that Dom Kinnear's not considered a candidate for head coaching jobs at this point, and I don't know how out there he's putting himself, that could happen to Peter Vermes too. You could end up seeing him on a staff somewhere serving as a number 2.
In review, during his tenure, Sporting Kansas City won the 2013 MLS Cup and did the double that year with the Open Cup, and then won Open Cups in 2012, 2015, 2017, guided the team to 11 playoff appearances, including 8 straight from 11 to 18, 4 first-place finishes in the regular season in that span, and the era post-Peter Vermes begins on Saturday when SKC takes on St. Louis in Major League Soccer action.
Yeah. Kerry Zavagnin gets into a rivalry match for his first game in charge. That's going to be interesting.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. If you have not hit subscribe yet, please do so now. Join the MK Ultras. Help this community grow and help this show become richer and fuller, and then that'll kind of help us become sustainable and then grow the future of the program and make it better for all and make a more robust American soccer conversation. Thank you to everyone who's already hit subscribe, and to those who have hit that thanks button that enables you to donate funds to the program. You can follow along on social media at Kickaround on X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Write us a note on morningkickaround@gmail.com. And you can also get a bonus content and be able to donate to the show, coffee.com/morningkickaround. And one more additional note, we are a podcast now. Morning Kickaround. On your favorite audio platform. So if you aren't able to put us up on your YouTube, bring us up on your favorite podcast platform. Just search for Morning Kickaround. And there's another thing you started this morning. There's a Discord now, right?
Okay. That was an internal message meant to be like as a placeholder. Hey, maybe we'll use this. But if people want to access the community and join up on the Discord server, we will make that available, I think, in the near future to supporters of the show, to financial supporters of the show.
So in short, subscribe to Morning Kickaround. Hit thanks if you're able to. Follow us along on social media at mkickaround, or get some bonus content and help support the show at coffee.com/morningkickaround. So I think that does our Wednesday. Plenty of soccer on the telly and around the communities until we come back on Friday morning. So until then, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.